Welcome to the Trading Psychology and Mindset Podcast. My name is Ash Playstead. I'll be your host as always. I'm an active trader myself, as well as being a very curious student of human nature, essentially how our minds work, and understanding how our brain and mind work was the pivotal shift that changed my trading life. And understanding this is fundamental to every trader breaking through to consistent profitability, which is what each and every one of us wants, right? And this podcast is all about answering that question and providing real, tangible, and actionable steps you can take to train the mind you bring to trading into the mind you need for trading success. So before we get started, please head over to my website, mindsetfitmethod.com, where you can check out more helpful content, always free, and subscribe to my newsletter, the Mindset Reflexology newsletter, where I dive deeper into advanced trading mindset strategies. Now, in this episode, we are discussing the effect traumatic memories have on your trading mind. So let's head over and get started. There's a hidden barrier to success in trading that traders have a very hard time seeing, much less recognizing. This is the how can that be part of my problems in trading thinking. And what I'm talking about here is trauma, traumatic memories. Now, just for clarification, not talking just about the big stuff like PTSD, when you hear the word traumatic memory, not just really severe post-traumatic stress disorder type stuff, although that's part of it. Also the smaller stuff, such as getting bullied at school, something that happened in your childhood where you felt powerless and unable to defend yourself. These are all traumatic memories. Now, trauma from the past that has not been worked out, that shows up here in trading, happens all the time. Now, I would think at least half of the traders I work with have this exact problem. We all like to believe that, that stuff all way back then, whether or not it's from our family of origin or, for example, in a war zone, or being an immigrant into a difficult situation, or whether or not it's societal. The thing is, and what happens is that often what we do is we bring historical trauma that our brain has adapted us to into trading. And boy, it shows up big time. And powerlessness often sits behind it. For example, if you've ever had a trade go against you and you can't let it go, you can't take the small loss and it goes on, it's because you're feeling powerless. And the thing is, that's exactly what traumatic memory does, is that it's when you're exposed to a situation that you are powerlessness in. If you've been bullied or if you've been abused, if you've had that happen to you, you know what powerlessness feels like, right? And you think that you can neatly keep it in the past and bury it, and it's not going to get anywhere. Then you get into trading and you find out that there are certain areas, particularly with things like taking a loss, that it rears its head any time that you feel that powerlessness that comes out of trauma. When someone basically overpowered you one way or another, physically or psychologically, and no matter how powerful you were at the time, you weren't powerful enough. So our limbic system is looking at that as trauma, and it cannot integrate the experience that it was having into memory. So it stays traumatized. Now, me personally, I come from a long history of working with stressed, anxious people. And I also find that a lot in trading. Maybe not to the point of PTSD necessarily, but a lot of that deep-seated nature of facing a trauma that you had no control over and it overwhelmed you, and it shows back up in your trading. So, how does it happen? Now, this will make more sense once you begin to understand how the brain makes memory and uses memory to gauge responses to uncertainty in the moment. So let's just say that you're in a situation, a very common one for me, working with traders, and that's that you had an abusive parent, right? Let's just use that as an example, either physically or psychologically or both. And what happens is no matter how much you tried back then, no matter what you did, what happens is that you were of no competition to the abusive parent. Whether or not it was truly getting hit or paddled or more subtle psychological abuse, whatever. What you discovered very quickly is, guess what? That traumatic memory, you could not manage it. You could not. right? The brain could not integrate it. So it takes on a life of its own. And what I want you to do is take a look at this particular situation. What you're looking at is central data coming in. Say like you're approaching, you're in a trade, right? And it's kind of approaching where it could stop you out. So the market is moving towards your stop loss and all that kind of stuff. It's what you would call a soft stop. And all of a sudden, what happens? You start going, oh my God, I could lose here, I could lose, right? You start feeling overpowered. I'm going to be overpowered. And all of a sudden, that rebel in you charges up. That rebel wasn't in a position to rise up in the past, now emerges. That's the sensory information coming in, and it goes to the thalamus. It's kind of like, and I've described this before, it's kind of like having a traffic cop deciding which is going to get the preference treatment out of all the traffic that comes into an intersection. And all of a sudden, a red-hot memory shows up of trauma, of a place where you were overpowered, where you were powerless. It shows up. And suddenly, it just absolutely gets routed directly to the amygdala, to fight-flight. Now, not in seconds, but in nanoseconds, right? Nanoseconds. So fast, it is way ahead of rational thought. And meanwhile, you think to yourself, I'm okay, I'm rational, that happened in the past, it's not happening now, so why? How can it be? Now that's your brain using an alibi. That's the thinking brain creating an alibi, because it takes so much effort for the brain to say, okay, the thalamus has taken a look at it. It's going to send it to the thinking brain, which you want in trading, and it takes a quarter of a second just to get there, much less cogitate on what you should be doing, right? This is where emotional brain steamrolls thinking brain every time. Meanwhile, the traumatic memory stored in the hippocampus is there, and it's alive, and boom, it's already in behaviour as chemistry before thought shows up, right? 6 nanoseconds that takes compared to 0.25 of a second. And friends, that's how it happens. And like I said, I work with it all the time. It's very common. I see it all the time in trading, and it's only when you're going in to decide to resolve that part that you get somewhere. So the question we're asking here is, do you get the freedom back to be able to manage the self during these tough moments in trading? And if so, how do you do that? Well, first of all, if you've been around my work for very long, you'll realize this, and that is that emotions are biological action potentials, BAPs. So they're not psychological like most people think. They're biological. That's why they can overpower you when you feel powerless, okay? At the same time, because of that, they also have a biological signature. Anytime that you're going to integrate some bad news, bad memories, and start bringing it so that, okay, I can integrate this, I can heal it, and I can move on, it's going to require you to have to slow it down first. This is where learning good breathing skills comes in, and that's the first thing. That's what you're breathing. You're dealing with that emotional signature. And the bellows breathing or diaphragmatic breathing that I teach as part of mindset reflexology, that's what that's all about. That's the very first step. You've got to release the tension and understand this. Once it's been considered, once that traffic cop says, oh, this is an emergency, the brain just lights up. It's ready for action. Cognition gets knocked offline, rational thinking gets knocked offline, and all of a sudden you're moving from a stimulus out there to a triggering of emotion and response to it, of a time in the past when you were powerless, that trauma from the past. Now, of course, you're going to either fight or flee, and you're going to have to do it then. Not think about it and do it later, do it then. That's why it happens outside thought. So that's what good emotional regulation can do. It can help you get in and calm that down. Now, the second piece of this is mindfulness. This is when you're able to step back out of the event and recognize that it's not you. It's your thoughts. It's a memory. It's not you. And stepping back there begins to allow you to see a different mind in action. When you look in there, you start realizing that this adapted self that I talk about in my work, this orphan-like nature, all it knows is fight or flight. And when it's being overpowered, it has a choice of basically fleeing or fighting. And in the example I'm using here with not wanting to take a loss, it's fighting back. It doesn't want to be overpowered. It's bigger now. It's stronger now. Do you see how this is connected to past ingrained memory? How it is triggered in a heartbeat by certain trading circumstances? And it does not matter how long ago those memories are, just because you could be in your 50s now and trading. And this memory could date back to when you were an infant. It doesn't matter. It's contained in your memory. So it doesn't matter how long ago it was or how much you have been able to ignore or overpower these memories in past successes you may have had. In trading, the speed of your brain to connect now with then is phenomenal. As I said, about 0.06 of a second. That's pretty amazing, right? It's very important to understand that is what you're up against. And what you're doing is you're saying, oh, that's the orphan in me, right? But there's also an inner critic part of you that's saying, you're powerless, you're done for, you can't do this. That's that inner critic, right? We all have that voice in our head. What has to happen is you have to learn to bring a new empowered mind in that moment. You have to bring a combination of self-compassion, self-soothing, of what I would call a caregiver, to soothe the explosive potential, to soothe that fear so that you can begin to get control of it, okay? The second thing is you're going to have to pull up the discipline to maintain order rather than going nuts, right? Going bonkers and going to fight flight. Then you're going to have the courage to face that fear, to be able to say, I'm big enough now, I'm strong enough now, I'm willing enough now, and I can take care of myself now. That is very important. I can take care of myself now. I can heal myself now. I can integrate this so that it's no longer a triggering time bomb waiting for something to go wrong. That's the defusing process that I'm talking about here. Okay, so fellow traders, that is what is going on. That's the way it works. And you begin to understand that it's not going to go away in the trading environment. Like other things in life, when you can avoid it, block it, use willpower. That doesn't work in trading, right? And then you begin to recognize, okay, if it's limbic in its nature, I have to calm it down, and then I have to become mindful, and I have to recognize the players in my mind that are being activated, and I have to bring forward a different version of myself to be able to deal with that situation much better, okay? But in truth, your brain has to learn this. It has to learn that it can now integrate that traumatic memory from the past into the present moment. That's the objective here. When that happens, then the power's taken away and you can become the trader that you can be. That's the most important learning here. You have the power to recalibrate past traumatic memories, no matter how big or small, so that you can intentionally manage them in the present moment. This is the edge you need to rise above the pack in trading. It's not some secret trading system that you need. It's your ability to recognize your humanity, that your weakness, past trauma, can become your strength. You just need to see it and take the right path forward. So friends, look, this is serious business. This is a serious message. And my hope, if you've had that in the past, and a lot have, as I said, at least 50%, probably higher, of all the people I work with, this is the area that you have to really look at and begin to heal. And that is what I do in my work in mindset reflexology, right? So that you can transform the mind into a probability-based mind that is very intentional. Okay? So I wish you good luck, friends. Take a look at this, because this is something that holds a lot of traders back. And it can be, you can work with it. It is workable. This is what you can learn from past trauma. That mind can be built. The question, as always, that you must ask yourself is, do I want to learn how to do it? Am I fully committed to my trading success? Now is the time to begin traveling down your own path to self-mastery in trading. So I invite you to come and learn. Go to our website, enjoy all the free learning materials there, subscribe to the Advanced Trading Mindset Strategies. That's the Mindset Reflexology newsletter. That's on the homepage of the website, mindsetfitmethod.com. Make a move in the right direction. Take action now. I will see you on the next episode of the Trading Psychology and Mindset podcast.